came here because I need you, because I care for you,
Please stop it, Michael.
because I want you to marry me.
Diane Keaton's death has shaken Hollywood, but it's not just her passing that has everyone talking. It's the secrets she left behind. The world remembers her as the quirky, sharp-witted icon from Annie Hall in the Godfather trilogy. But behind those oversized glasses and that nervous laugh was a woman far more complex than anyone imagined. At 79, the Oscar-winning legend is gone, but her legacy is being rewritten in real time. As heartfelt tributes flood in, startling revelations are emerging from her unpublished memoir, private letters, and interviews with those who knew her best, secrets so deeply buried that even her closest collaborators were blindsided. Diane wasn't just private, she was strategic. One longtime friend confessed. Everything the world saw, her humor, her fashion, her independence, it was all real, but it was also armor. Now those layers are finally being peeled back. From secret romances that changed Hollywood history, to hidden passions and heartbreaks that shaped her artistry, the truth about Diane Keaton reveals a woman who lived and loved on her own terms. Today, we're diving into the 10 most jaw-dropping secrets Diane Keaton took to her grave. Truths that will forever change how we see one of Hollywood's most fascinating and fiercely guarded stars. For decades, audiences believed they knew Diane Keaton, the eccentric, brilliant actress who brought charm, wit, and vulnerability to every role she touched. But behind those unforgettable performances was a secret so personal it reshapes everything we thought we knew about her. Before we dive into the legacy she left behind, there's one revelation that stands above the rest, one that's both stunning and deeply tragic. Keaton's most iconic role, the character that defined her public image for 50 years, wasn't inspired by herself at all. It was inspired by someone she lost. Diane Keaton doesn't get nervous, she once joked in an interview. But when pressed, she whispered, "I'm very nervous right now. My heart's beating very fast." Now we know why. Because the real Annie Hall, the character that won her an Oscar and captured the world's heart, was not a reflection of Diane. It was a tribute to her identical sister, Anne. For half a century, critics and fans speculated about how much of Annie Hall was acting and how much was just Diane being Diane. The quirky clothes, the hesitant stammer, the tender vulnerability. But according to newly uncovered family documents and insider accounts, Annie Hall wasn't Diane playing herself. It was Diane resurrecting her twin. Anne Hall died at just 16 after a devastating battle with leukemia. Diane, born Diane Hall before adopting her mother's maiden name, rarely spoke of her sister again. Instead, she carried her with her, folding her mannerisms, her voice, even her unique fashion sense into the character that would make history. When Woody Allen was developing the script, Diane began channeling Anne. It started as improvisation, but soon she wasn't acting, she was becoming her sister. Unaware of the truth, Woody Allen built the role around Diane's improvisations, never realizing he was helping her create a cinematic memorial. The performance that made Diane Keaton a legend was in reality a love letter to the sister the world never knew existed. It's the kind of revelation that stops Hollywood history in its tracks. What if the defining image of Annie Hall, those iconic menswear-inspired outfits, the slouchy hat, the vest, the tie, wasn't just a quirky fashion statement, but a love letter to a ghost from Diane Keaton's past? As it turns out, it was. The look that launched a global trend wasn't born on a film set, it was born in grief. The clothes were a tribute to her sister, the one who'd first raided her father's closet as a teenager. She never corrected anyone who thought Annie Hall was just Diane being Diane, one longtime costume designer revealed. The truth was too private, too painful. Instead, Keaton did what she always did when something touched a nerve. She joked, she deflected, she smiled her way out of it. A defense mechanism polished to perfection. But now, with the truth laid bare, that performance takes on an entirely new light. What looked like effortless authenticity was actually an act of resurrection, a woman bringing her sister back to life through art. And just when you think you've seen the most personal side of Diane Keaton, another secret emerges, one that would shake Hollywood to its core. Because behind the glitz of red carpets and the buzz of award nights, there was a love affair that became a revolution. Diane Keaton and Warren Beatty weren't just lovers, they were conspirators in a quiet war for equality.
While the world saw two movie stars in love, what no one realized was that they were also partners in power. After discovering Beatty earned nearly triple what Keaton made for Reds, despite her Oscar win, both decided to fight back. Together, they rewrote the rules of Hollywood contracts, forcing studios to confront their double standards. Warren used his clout to demand transparency, a former studio executive confessed. He made sure Diane got what she deserved. It was unheard of at the time. Their secret alliance didn't just level the playing field, it changed the entire game. And in true Keaton fashion, she never took credit. She let the work, and the quiet revolution behind it, speak for itself. He wasn't just her co-star. He was her silent partner in revolution. Behind closed doors, he refused every deal that didn't give Diane equal footing, equal pay, equal respect, equal power. Not only for the films they made together, but for her solo projects too. The pact was secret, designed to keep studios from blacklisting them as a package deal. Yet this quiet rebellion would forever change Hollywood's business landscape. Without fanfare, Diane Keaton became one of the first women in the industry to receive profit participation deals, contracts once reserved exclusively for male stars. The brilliance, one Hollywood historian explained, was that it never looked like activism. On paper, Warren was simply a stubborn leading man demanding creative control. But beneath that, he was shielding Diane, helping her win the kinds of deals that would have gotten her labeled difficult or even unhireable had she fought for them herself. This revelation reshapes everything we thought we knew about both of them. Warren's reputation as a controlling perfectionist now reads his devotion to fairness, and Diane's charmingly disorganized, soft-spoken persona? It was calculated brilliance, a mask that let her outmaneuver a system built to keep women quiet. They created a model for how women could wield power in Hollywood without appearing to, said one contemporary female producer. Diane's greatest performance, it turns out, wasn't on screen. It was in the boardroom, hidden behind her bangs and that shy smile. And just when you think you've seen every side of her, another secret unfolds. Her hidden architectural empire, a multi-million-dollar passion project that blurred the line between art, design, and genius. Diane Keaton wasn't just a film icon. She was an architect of her own destiny. She wasn't just acting in the world's most glamorous productions. She was secretly designing them. Hidden behind a pseudonym, Diane Keaton quietly built a second empire, one of glass, steel, and stone. She was a legitimate designer who worked under another name, revealed an architect who collaborated with her for years. Using her mother's maiden name combined with her middle name, Keaton created a new professional identity, one that allowed her to move through the world of architecture unnoticed, free from the blinding spotlight of Hollywood. According to multiple sources, Keaton, under this alternate persona, designed or co-designed more than a dozen major residential and commercial projects across Southern California, including several award-winning landmarks. She kept this part of her life completely separate, said a close friend who knew both versions of her. She literally changed clothes, switched glasses, and walked into meetings as someone else. Most of her clients never realized they were working with Diane Keaton, the Oscar-winning actress. They only saw the poised, meticulous designer whose blueprints transformed skylines. That hidden portfolio, now valued at over $30 million, stands as a silent monument to her genius. Critics have praised these buildings for their bold innovation, never suspecting the Hollywood icon behind the drafts. What's most astonishing is how Keaton managed to sustain two elite careers, each demanding absolute dedication, without ever letting one bleed into the other. Even close friends from the film world were stunned to learn the scale of her secret achievements. Her biographer described it as a masterclass in compartmentalization. Keaton's reason for secrecy was simple yet profound. She wanted her architecture judged purely on its merit, uncolored by celebrity. That choice, trading fame for authenticity, reveals the quiet integrity that defined her. The buildings were her legacy as much as the films, but she cared more about the work than the credit. How many people in her position would choose anonymity over applause? That was Diane, creating beauty without needing to sign her name to it. And just when you think you've grasped the measure of her private world, another secret emerges, one tied to her most passionate and turbulent romance, the truth about her relationship with Al Pacino.
She almost gave it all up for him. What the public never knew, and what Diane Keaton revealed only in private letters discovered after her death, was the shocking truth behind her romance with Al Pacino. Far from the casual Hollywood fling the tabloids portrayed, their relationship was deep, consuming, and nearly lifelong. They were secretly engaged twice, lived together for almost 3 years, and came closer to marriage than anyone ever realized. But what tore them apart wasn't lack of love. It was something far more devastating. According to the letters Keaton wrote to his sister in the late 1980s, Pacino had one condition for marriage: she would have to give up acting. That demand struck at the heart of who Diane was. For a woman who had built her entire life proving she was more than just a pretty face, the idea of abandoning her craft was unthinkable, and yet she almost did it. A colleague who knew them both explained it bluntly. Al had very traditional views about family that clashed with his artistic image. He wanted Diane to stay home, to focus on a family, not films. Those letters show that Keaton turned down several major roles in the early 1980s while she wrestled with Pacino's ultimatum. What the world thought was a career low was actually a personal crisis. And when she finally stepped onto the set of Reds, the performance that would win her an Oscar, it wasn't just acting. It was Diane living through the pain of her own choice, love or freedom. The emotion on screen, that haunting conflict between passion and independence, was real. It was her goodbye to the life she might have had with him. Even after their breakup, their connection never truly ended. Pacino quietly advised her on projects, and she helped him through personal struggles the world never saw. They created a different kind of partnership, said one director who knew them both. Less romantic, more honest, more them. It was a love story that didn't end. It evolved, and it redefines how we understand Keaton's entire career. The woman celebrated as Hollywood's emblem of independence had once stood on the edge of giving it all up for love. And yet, just as she chose her art over her heart, she made one move no one expected: her secret role in saving Woody Allen's career. Few people realize just how much of Woody Allen's voice actually belonged to Diane Keaton. Her fingerprints are all over the parts of those films that audiences connected with most, said one film scholar who has spent decades studying Allen's work. The emotional honesty, that approachable neurosis, that fragile balance between intellect and heart, those weren't just Allen's trademarks, they were hers. This revelation reframes one of Hollywood's most celebrated creative partnerships. It wasn't a story of a director and his muse, it was the story of two equals shaping each other's genius. Behind the camera, Keaton wasn't just performing, she was defining the tone, rhythm, and emotional depth that would come to define Allen's best work. But while she was silently shaping cinematic history, she was fighting another, far more personal battle, one she never let the public see. The lowest point in my life, she once confided to a close friend. Few knew what she meant until now. Behind her trademark wit and effortless energy, Diane Keaton was hiding a decades-long struggle with a rare form of rheumatoid arthritis. Diagnosed in her early 40s, around the time she filmed Baby Boom, she faced constant pain that worsened with each passing year. She made the decision to keep it private from everyone, almost everyone, revealed a medical professional who treated her for years. Her fear was justified. Hollywood was already unforgiving to aging women. Add illness to that, and her career could have evaporated overnight. So Keaton built a secret system around her pain. She would rise 4 hours before call time to begin a painstaking routine of stretches, medications, and treatments just to make it through the day. Between takes, she'd vanish to ice her swollen joints or receive quick emergency therapy. Even her famously loose, layered clothing, those oversized jackets and turtlenecks, served a purpose. They weren't just style, they were camouflage, hiding the braces, wraps, and compression garments she relied on to function. Directors thought her preference for limited takes was an artistic quirk. In truth, it was necessity. Her joints couldn't withstand repetition. She was extraordinary, said a longtime assistant. Every scene was an act of endurance disguised as performance. What's most astonishing? Some of her most physically demanding roles, Something's Gotta Give, The First Wives Club, came when her condition was at its absolute worst. She pushed herself past what anyone would consider possible, recalled a physical therapist who worked with her. No one knew the pain she was in. She refused to let it define her. In the end, Diane Keaton didn't just help shape the emotional core of American cinema. She did it while silently fighting a private war against her own body. Few knew that behind Diane Keaton's effortless grace on screen lay an invisible battle that nearly cost her the ability to move. The day before filming, she could barely stand, immobile and in agony. Yet after hours of intensive treatments, she'd step onto set, deliver scenes demanding precision and vitality, then collapse the moment the cameras stopped rolling. This revelation doesn't just deepen respect for her craft, it redefines it. Keaton's performances weren't merely feats of acting, they were acts of astonishing physical courage. It also reframes her lifelong discretion about aging. She wasn't being vain, recalled a director who worked with her for years. She was being strategic. Any mention of frailty, she knew, would invite pity, something she despised. Keaton refused sympathy, refused exceptions. She wanted no special treatment, no softened expectations. Her standard was equality, pure and simple, to be judged on the same artistic ground as her peers, regardless of what she endured privately. That quiet defiance, the determination to succeed or fail on her own merit, became the defining code of her life. But it wasn't the only secret that shaped her choices, the family secret that shaped her career choices. For decades, Diane Keaton's decision never to marry has been praised as a bold feminist statement of independence, but newly released journals after her death reveal a deeper, more personal truth, one rooted in family pain she spent her life protecting. Her choice wasn't philosophical, it was emotional. It came from what she saw at home, confided a family friend who knew the real story. Her father, she wrote, suffered from undiagnosed bipolar disorder that cast long shadows over her childhood. His unpredictable moods, soaring mania followed by crushing depression, created a home filled with both brilliance and instability. Her mother, determined to preserve appearances, quietly sacrificed herself to maintain a sense of normalcy. In those pages, Keaton described the heartbreak of watching her mother's spirit slowly dissolve into caretaking, her ambition swallowed up by the endless demands of her father's illness. That, a mental health expert who reviewed the journals explained, became Diane's silent warning to herself. Marriage, for her, wasn't just a risk, it was a potential repetition of that loss. Behind her luminous smile and signature hats was a woman who had learned early on that love could be both sanctuary and storm, and who chose, with fierce self-awareness, never to let the latter define her life. Few people realized that Diane Keaton's fiercely independent spirit was born not from rebellion, but from survival. As a young woman, she made a vow she would never let her identity disappear inside someone else's shadow, the way she had seen it happen in her own family. That silent promise became the compass for her entire life. It shaped not only her relationships, but her art. Every time she stepped into the skin of a complicated, imperfect woman, Kay in The Godfather, Renata in Interiors, she was mining her own history. You can trace a straight line from her family trauma to those performances, noted one critic who has studied Keaton's work. Her portrayals of women caught between strength and fragility weren't imagination, they were lived truth, drawn from emotional scars most people never saw.
Even her most personal choices reflected that same deliberate self-definition. Her decision to adopt children later in life and to do it alone wasn't rebellion against family, it was her way of rebuilding it. Her private journals show a woman determined to break the pattern she'd inherited. She wanted a home that would never feel unpredictable, said a lifelong friend. She understood her father's struggles so deeply that she made sure her children would never live through anything like it. What the world interpreted as quirky nonconformity was, in reality, hard-earned wisdom. Diane Keaton choosing control, stability, and emotional health over the chaos she grew up in. The music career that almost was. Before she became one of Hollywood's most distinctive actresses, Diane Keaton was chasing a very different dream: music. Long before Annie Hall charmed audiences with her playful singing, she was training to become a professional vocalist. A music producer who later worked with her on secret projects revealed Diane was studying acting at the neighborhood playhouse by day, but by night she was singing in small clubs, developing this haunting blend of jazz phrasing and folk storytelling. According to multiple sources, Keaton never really left that world behind. Hidden inside her home was a fully equipped recording studio, where over the decades she recorded more than 100 songs, originals and reimagined standards alike. An entire parallel career quietly unfolding beside her legendary film work that the public never knew existed. Few people knew that long after the cameras stopped rolling, Diane Keaton would slip into dimly lit studios with world-class session musicians to record songs no one would ever hear. An engineer who worked on those secret sessions recalled, "These weren't vanity projects. She attacked the music with the same precision and emotional depth she brought to her acting." The result was a stunning, decades-long body of work, an entire hidden career that could have redefined her as a musician in her own right. But she never released a single track. In the early years, she feared being dismissed as just another actress dabbling in music. Later, the songs became too personal, each lyric a confession, each melody a diary entry. Those recordings were her emotional journal, said one collaborator. She poured in everything she couldn't say in interviews: love, loss, family, fear. For Keaton, the music was too raw, too revealing to share while Hollywood still had its eyes on her. But in her final years, she reportedly began preparing those deeply intimate recordings for a possible posthumous release, carefully labeling, remastering, and preserving the sound of a lifetime's secret artistry. Hidden beneath Diane Keaton's celebrated Hollywood career was another world entirely, one few ever glimpsed and even fewer understood. Those who've heard fragments of her secret music recordings call them revelatory, the work of an artist unbound by expectation, exploring emotions and soundscapes far removed from her on-screen persona. What's astonishing isn't just the quality, said a music historian who reviewed the tapes, but the sheer discipline it took to create this body of work in complete silence, without recognition, without applause. While most artists hunger for validation, Keaton created for decades with no audience beyond a trusted circle of collaborators. That devotion, he added, speaks to a rare artistic purity. This discovery reframes everything we thought we knew about Keaton. Her public career, as impressive as it was, turns out to be just one layer of a far deeper creative life, a private symphony of ideas, emotions, and experiments she chose to keep hidden. And that wasn't her only secret. There was also the screenplay Hollywood refused to touch, the one insiders called too female. Throughout her career, Diane occasionally stepped behind the camera, directing films like Unstrung Heroes and
and hanging up. But what few realized was her decades-long battle to bring her most personal project to life, a story so intimate and uncompromising that studio executives rejected it again and again. In the late 1980s, she wrote The White Room, a daring exploration of female friendship across decades. It was one of the best unproduced scripts in Hollywood, revealed a producer who tried to help Keaton get it made, but the industry wasn't ready for that kind of truth. It was the kind of story Hollywood said it wanted, but couldn't stomach. Funny, raw, and heartbreakingly honest, The White Room peeled back the layers of female friendship across decades with a clarity that made studio executives squirm. According to multiple sources familiar with the screenplay, the story followed three women who met in college in the 1960s, tracing their lives through marriages, divorces, motherhood, ambition, and illness. It didn't flinch from anything: female sexuality, aging, or the quiet rage of unrealized potential.
Too female-centric, studios kept saying. That was the refrain, recalled one director once attached to the project. Even with Diane willing to star alongside Meryl Streep and Jessica Lange, 3 Oscar winners, no less, no one would touch it. For more than 30 years, Diane fought to bring The White Room to life. She rewrote it again and again, poured her own money into maintaining rights, and approached every new studio regime with a fresh pitch in renewed optimism. But beneath the industry politics lay something far more personal. This was Diane's soul on paper, said a close friend. The White Room wasn't just a screenplay. It was a mirror of her life, her friendships, her fears. It captured how women hold each other up when marriages crumble, careers stall, and bodies betray them. And that, perhaps, was what made it too powerful to make. It was the project she refused to let die, the one she called the only story I ever truly needed to tell. For decades, Diane Keaton guarded The White Room like sacred ground. When streaming giants recently came knocking, offering millions to adapt it into a limited series, she stunned them all with a flat refusal. She would only allow it to be made as a theatrical film, insisting the story's emotional power depended on being experienced in one sitting, in the dark, with strangers. She turned down life-changing money, her longtime agent revealed. But for Diane, integrity was the only currency that mattered. That unwavering principle, so often misunderstood for eccentricity, reveals the truer portrait of Keaton. Not just the self-effacing wit the public adored, but a woman who spent her life battling an industry that tried to shrink her vision. She would rather let her greatest work go unseen than see it compromised. And just when it seemed that fight had defined her, another story quietly reshaped her legacy. In her 50s, when most Hollywood women were written off, Diane made a choice that shocked the public and inspired countless others. She adopted her daughter Dexter in 1996 and her son Duke in 2001, alone, by design. What few knew was how deeply personal that decision was, rooted in the same fierce independence that had guided every battle of her career. It wasn't the glossy Hollywood version of motherhood the public imagined. It was something far more raw, private, and deeply human. Behind the cameras and acclaim, Diane Keaton's journey to becoming a mother began with heartbreak few ever knew about. In her early 40s, she suffered a devastating pregnancy loss that forever changed her. She went through it almost entirely alone, revealed a close friend who stood by her side during that dark time. The relationship she was in had already unraveled. Her partner didn't want children. So when Diane discovered she was pregnant after the breakup, she saw it as fate's way of giving her what she'd longed for, only to lose the baby at 5 months. According to those close to her, that loss became a turning point, a deep wound that led to even deeper reflection. Adoption wasn't a spontaneous celebrity decision. It was the result of years of soul-searching about what family truly meant. What the public never knew was that Diane had been quietly researching adoption since her late 30s, speaking with adult adoptees, studying the process, and questioning her own readiness long before she moved forward. She took nothing lightly, said someone involved in her adoption journey. Every choice was intentional. Her journals reveal a woman terrified of letting fame taint her children's lives. Diane worried that her celebrity might make them targets or curiosities, so she built walls of protection, strict privacy boundaries she upheld without compromise. As one child development specialist who advised her noted, she wanted her kids to grow up as people, not as Diane Keaton's children, but simply as themselves. It was a love story born not from spotlight glamour, but from loss, courage, and a fierce determination to build family on her own terms. years. She built an entire second life to protect her children from the glare of fame. Diane Keaton used her mother's last name on school forms, chose neighborhoods where no one cared about Hollywood, and crafted a world where her kids could simply be kids. But beneath those choices was something deeper, a creative evolution shaped by motherhood itself. After adopting her children, Keaton made a deliberate pivot towards safer, more commercial film roles, projects that offered shorter shoots and steady paychecks. Critics called it selling out. In truth, it was sacrifice. In her private journals, she wrote candidly about those decisions, explaining how she'd watched her own mother struggle with financial insecurity and vowed not to repeat that cycle. Stability is its own kind of artistry, she once noted. According to her former business manager, Keaton was painfully aware of the trade-offs. Fewer awards, fewer daring scripts, but she chose presence over prestige.
Seen through that lens, the so-called decline of her career looks less like retreat and more like conviction. The actress who once defined herself by artistic integrity ultimately redefined integrity itself, choosing love, security, and motherhood as her final masterpiece. Motherhood wasn't some impulsive late-life whim or a way to fill the silence left by fading Hollywood offers. It was, as one close friend put it, the culmination of a lifelong dream. Diane Keaton had envisioned this chapter for decades, planning it with the same precision and intensity she brought to every role, every project, every reinvention of herself. And now, as we reveal these 10 secrets, a startlingly complete portrait takes shape. A portrait not of the quirky, self-effacing star the public adored, but of a woman who lived with deliberate strategy and breathtaking complexity. Behind the nervous laugh and the offbeat charm was a razor-sharp artist who mastered the impossible balancing act of thriving in Hollywood without ever surrendering her authenticity. These revelations don't just deepen our understanding of Keaton, they upend it. She wasn't merely a gifted actress who made us feel something on screen. She was an architect whose designs still grace California's skylines, a musician who created a secret body of work in private studios, a creative partner shaping films behind the scenes, her fingerprints on classics that never bore her name, a woman who endured loss, illness, and reinvention without fanfare or self-pity. And perhaps the most extraordinary part? Through it all, she remained disarmingly real. The fluttery awkwardness, the wide-eyed sincerity, it wasn't an act. It was just one facet of a woman who understood herself better than anyone else ever could. The truth about Diane Keaton doesn't shrink her myth, it expands it. The woman who once appeared to stumble charmingly through life was all along choreographing every step with purpose. The actress who seemed to celebrate her eccentricities was in fact shaping her own legend, one conscious, brilliant choice at a time. Diane Keaton's true brilliance wasn't just in how she acted, it was in how she crafted her life as a masterpiece of balance. In a world where fame devours privacy, she pulled off the impossible, giving the world a version of herself that felt utterly real while fiercely guarding the parts that mattered most. That quiet duality was her real art form. From her Oscar-winning role in Annie Hall to her late career glow in Something's Gotta Give, Keaton wasn't merely portraying women of depth and independence. She was living that truth every day, with wit, courage, and a touch of mischief. Her passing may have closed one of Hollywood's brightest chapters, but in its wake, a deeper story has begun to surface. The woman behind the hats, the glasses, and the contagious laughter was far more complex than anyone imagined. These 10 revelations don't just reshape our understanding of Diane Keaton, they remind us that her greatest role may have been the one she played off-screen, that of a woman who refused to let the world define her. She wasn't just Hollywood's queen of quirky charm, she was a woman quietly orchestrating a life of depth, discipline, and daring creativity. Behind the vintage hats and offbeat humor was a mind that mapped every choice with precision, guided by values and experiences most never saw. As we look back on Diane Keaton's extraordinary journey, the actress, architect, musician, writer, and devoted mother, we begin to grasp the full brilliance of a woman who refused to be confined by fame. Tell us in the comments, which of Diane Keaton's secrets changed the way you see her?